Okay, so we're going to continue factoring in this section, and we're going to be discussing a very specific type, which is going to be guess and check. Now, before we actually do that, I want to demonstrate to you that factoring and multiplication using distribution are actually the opposite, basically opposite ways of doing things. So there they go backwards. So this right here is a factored form. And now factored form is asking you to write out the expression as a multiplication. So can we see that the main connector here, which is right in the middle, is multiplication. So let's go ahead and do the distribution, and we'll see that we get x squared for the first one, then plus 1x. The second one is going to be plus x plus 1. So this is equal to x squared plus 2x plus 1. This right here, the one that we got on the bottom, that's called the expanded form. The one on the top is called the factored form. And what they do is, if you have the factored form and you do distribution, then you get the expanded form. If you start off with the expanded form and you do factoring, I think that one should be pretty clear that you'll get the factored form. So the goal whenever you're factoring is to write it in this factored form, which means to write it as a multiplication. So the first one that we're going to do is called guess and check. And let's do the problem b squared plus 8b plus 7. So to do this one, it may be a little bit different than the way you've seen it before. So let's just go ahead and write out the first step. So the first step is to write out the factors of the leading coefficient. So the leading coefficient there is 1, there's a hidden 1, and its factors are just 1 and 1. Part 2 is to write out the factors of the term without a variable attached to it, which in this case is going to be the 7. And its factors are 7 and 1. And now you have to write all of them. It just happens to be in this case that there's only one pair of factors. So we only need to write these two. Step 3 is to take these two groupings, the 7 and the 1, and the 1 and 1, and ask yourself to multiply 1 from this group times something from the second group. And in the middle, we're going to add or subtract it and then put a plus or a minus in the front as well. So what can I put in front here? A 7 and a 1. And the question is, do I need to put a negative 7, a negative 1, a plus 7, or a plus 1, so that they add or subtract together to get the 8. And is that pretty straightforward? In this case, that 7 plus 1 is going to give you the 8 value on the top. So it should look like this. Okay. Now, the factoring part is going to be given by a multiplication problem. And the way that I always start it is I always write the variable. And the way that I wrote this out will always have the two first numbers that are going to be in front of the b always in these two spots. So there's always going to be the 1 and the 1 here in this case. Now the next part, this is the part which is a little bit more complicated. What is being multiplied to this 1? And the answer is this 7. So remember, like we did it in the very beginning, we do the distribution. So if I were to distribute this, do I get a multiplication here? Or does the multiplication end up going all the way out to here? And so if you remember, the distribution doesn't happen in the same parentheses. It happens to the other one. So the bottom distribution is the way that distribution works. So this 1 needs to be multiplied to that 7, which will go over here. Now similarly with this one is represented by the second part. And how do we do distribution there? Well, this number gets distributed to that one. So the 1 goes in the middle. The sign is going to be the same as the ones in the front. And that is going to be your factored form. And we should probably write that out. B plus 1 times B plus 7 is the factored form of b squared plus 8b plus 7.